All of our success is intertwined. The more money that we make in our communities, the more wealth there is to go around, right? So the way things work economically is if there's more opportunities and there's more opportunities for people to grow and to learn, it's just going to explode, what we have and how we can live. So I think it's ultimately an amazing thing. But when, part of your question was, can we grow as people? Can we grow, and what's the step to like building a house? Can you get lost in YouTube? Is there too much information to keep us from taking action? That is one of the downsides. People go, oh, just go to YouTube University. Or they say, oh, I'm overwhelmed with information. I don't even know where to start. So I agree with you there. And my suggestion is this: if there's something that you have that you would like to accomplish, set a very specific goal, right? Because it's very easy to go, oh, that sounds cool. And then you start working towards it. And then you discover something in your journey and go, oh, that sounds cool. And you start hopping from one thing and you never complete any one goal or one task. And I think that the discipline of getting from point A to point B, the destination you wanted to get to, having that discipline to go all the way is going to be very significant to someone's success and being able to put on the blinders and just make it happen. That's when we start to dive deep and be resourceful and find ways to accomplish our goals.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. It is game day at the Play Your Position podcast, which means I have an amazing guest who is suited up, ready to take the field and take us down into his leadership journey. His name is Zack Booth, and he is coming to us from the beautiful state of Utah, and he's got some incredible insights about how we can all show up and play a bigger game in our lives. So, Zack, are you ready for kickoff?
I'm so ready.
I am too. So like I said, team, Zack is currently living in the beautiful state of Utah, where he likes to spend time out and about with his wife and kids. But his main goal is to help investors achieve time and money freedom through real estate. So we're going to be talking about that timeless investment of real estate and how you might be able to start your own real estate journey. Zack has an amazing and different journey than I don't think I've ever had anybody on this show who's started as a window cleaner and then put a bunch of videos up on YouTube. You can actually find his window cleaning tutorial videos on YouTube that have millions of views. And that led him to ending up on the History Channel because they noticed him and wanted him on there for a special feature. Now, he achieved success with that. And you would think, okay, I can just, walk away and enjoy my family and life. But no, he had always dreamed of being a real estate investor. And he took a leap of faith. He walked away from window cleaning. And within a handful of years, he was making over $1 million per year from real estate investing. And he now has his own company. He has a successful podcast and YouTube channel where he dedicates his time giving back and helping others to get started in the competitive game of real estate. So, Zack, with all that just leading us up into this conversation today, would you tell us your story about when you got the call to leadership? Was it through the window cleaning business? Was it when you were a child? Do you remember a specific moment when you knew, I am moving in this direction and I'm going to be leading in some capacity? Tell us your story.
Yeah, it started when I was young. My business journey, I started working for my family business when I was 11. So I didn't grow up wealthy at all. I remember I used to be made fun of all the time as a kid because I didn't have much. I was very simple. My parents had this lawn mowing business. My dad's, he's now 62. He's worked at the same job since he's 19. So after his work, And my mom was waiting tables when I was a teenager. And then she eventually became a flight nurse. They do very well financially now, but when I was a kid, they didn't. And we, there's me and 4 of my siblings, and we worked in this lawn mowing business to help pay for extra bills. And then we'd go disappear into the mountains every once in a while as a family. And say, and a lot of that money that was made from the business allowed us to go have those adventures as a family. So grateful for it. But, I remember when I was 14, mowing lawns after school and in the summers with my brothers. And we were mowing hundreds of lawns a week. And I was a strong kid because I'd worked from a young age. But at 14, I remember we were out late one night, me and my dad, and we were doing a cleanup. So we were cleaning up the leaves and winterizing the sprinkler systems and, working our butts off. And it was dark and we're still working. And I remember seeing the lights on these beautiful mansions that were taking care of their yards, And I remember being kind of nervous to ask my dad, hey, Dad, why are you broke?
No, wow.
But I started thinking why are we doing this? Why are these people not mowing our lawns? I was so confused. I was like, how do they have such a different status and opportunity? They were always super polite people, very kind. I just didn't understand it. And I remember not knowing how to ask my dad. And I started asking him questions in a roundabout way, hey, Dad, how much money do you think these people make? What do they do? And I finally had the courage to be why do they make so much money? Why are we mowing their lawns? Why are we not wealthy? And he's, as I expected, he kind of got annoyed. Mm-hmm. And he said, I don't know, ask my rich friend. And he told me his rich friend was Clint. And I'm like, Clint's not rich. He drives a beat up old truck, And he's like, no, son, he owns a ton of real estate. He's actually very wealthy. Oh. And you should ask him. So 14 years old, I went to Clint and I said, Clint, and we're still friends. I went to Alaska with him this year and he's a good guy. And I remember asking him, I was like, hey, Clint, how do you make money? My dad says you're rich. And he gave me a book. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So 14 years old, I read my first financial / self-help book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it really opened my mind at 14. And so, at 15, I switched from the family company and kind of went out on my own doing framing and finish carpentry. And by the time I was 17, I was hopping jobs to learn and to have more experience. I was doing night jobs, doing taxidermy. I did handcrafted cheese, worked in a wood mill. So I had all these different jobs by the time I was between 14 and 17. And at 17 years old, actually at 16 years old, what happened is my dad came to me. He was raised very rough, very tough situation. And he wanted me to be a man. He wanted me to be self-sufficient. He wanted me to take ownership of my life at a very young age. He thought that was best for me, and I'm be forever grateful for the way he raised me. But he said, at 16, you're a man, you will take care of yourself. I'll pay for your food and your housing, but if you want anything else, it's on you. Oh, he gave me $200 a year for clothing. So if I wanted a driver's license, I had to pay for my insurance. I had to pay for my basketball stuff. I played high school basketball. I had to pay for all of it. I had to pay for whatever the costs were there. If he said, if I wanted a truck, I'd pay cash like he did. He wouldn't even co-sign a loan. And so I, was working all these jobs, working nights, really struggling to do it all, to play basketball, make money, and have any kind of a, good experience in high school. And so at 17, out of necessity, I had come home from working in Nova Scotia, Canada that summer, working 80-hour work weeks. And I took that opportunity because it was when my housing would be covered, and all I had to do was pay for my food, but I was going to be able to come home with roughly $10,000 after that summer. Mm-hmm. And that was going to be my truck and my equipment to start my business. I thought I was going to do yard care, kind of start up my own thing, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I went and did that. And then when I was up in Nova Scotia, we were taking care of the summer home and then doing landscaping as well. And they had us clean the windows one day. And I'm like, man, this is actually kind of complicated. This is way harder than I thought. I wonder how much money's in this. And
a lot.
So, I was shocked, honestly. So when I came home, I got the Yellow Pages. This is back before YouTube was a tutorial place. It was, it was just funny videos, and the smartphone, the iPhone had only come out the year I graduated. So it hadn't even come out yet. So this was before the opportunity that we have today. You can learn anything in seconds. And so I had to get resourceful. I opened up the Yellow Pages for the new audience that doesn't even know what that is. It's basically Google
Yellow
a
Pages?
business. Yeah, like Google a business in a book, right? So I pull open this book and I looked up window cleaning, and then I called a couple companies and said, hey, my dad wants a bid to wash his windows. Can you guys come out? He asked me to call you guys. So they came out and I figured out how much they were charging and like followed them around.
Oh, man.
And then kind of got an idea of what it cost. And then I went to Home Depot and I bought a squeegee and a scrubber, and I had no idea how to wash windows. And I went door to door selling window cleaning to start my business. And I remember I was pretty darn broke. I bought my first cell phone. I had to get a Cricket cell phone because they didn't require a credit score. And I wasn't even 18 as well. So it was the only cell phone carrier that would take me to get my first cell phone. I got this little brick cell phone, and I got my little postcards made of window, I was a window cleaner. And I went to work, and it was a journey, but in a decade, I had built a company with 11 employees and 3 trucks, and
wow,
we were doing about $500,000 a year in window cleaning revenue. So it was a journey for sure, and it was a lot of being resourceful and figuring it out and making a lot of mistakes and feeling stupid. But I eventually started making money. I remember my senior year of high school. My 18th birthday, I went and got my first business license, and I got bonded and insured. I couldn't do that till I was 18, and my dad wouldn't sign, and he didn't want the liability of it. So I had to wait till my 18th birthday. That's what I went and did for my birthday. And that way I was getting like the bigger contracts, the dealerships, the credit unions, some of this bigger route work, which was extremely profitable if you did it right. And, it was pretty awesome. Ultimately I learned a ton. I learned to hire people. I learned to fire people. I learned to lead people. And I had no experience because I'd never even worked a corporate job. I didn't know what it was like to lead and build structure. It was just a lot of mistakes more than anything. So
plus you were young.
Young. Yeah.
You did this as a teenager and then into your early 20s. Oh my gosh, there's so much in that story, Zack. First of all, what a terrific story. So much rich detail and really painting the picture of why you are where you are today. And I think it's so important to hear the backstory because as we were talking about in the pre-chat with the way the internet works today, we're exposed to everybody's highlight reel. We don't see the mistakes. We see a lot of filtered experience. And I'm not saying that what you put on YouTube is filtered. I'm saying that for people who are coming up today, I know our children, and you have young children. So, you and your wife are already making decisions about how are we going to help these beings navigate the world with all this stuff in it, right? And that's a different question. We may get back to that. But the fact that you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad at 14, the fact that you really were an apprentice. And I like that you described essentially what an apprenticeship is. You followed people around, you asked questions, you got creative about how am I going to learn this stuff because your dad didn't know everything. And what a gift. I'm sure at the time you probably a couple of expletives perhaps about, oh man.
I resented my parents for years.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I thought they were mean and hateful and selfish. And now it's like, God, they did a damn good job. I'm just so grateful for it because, one of the biggest drivers is pain. A lot of us think that we're in pursuit of pleasure. It's not true. We're in pursuit of avoidance of pain. Right? We're wanting to take the path of least resistance. And if things are easy, why would we get uncomfortable and make mistakes and feel stupid and go work 70, 80-hour work weeks? Why would we ever do that? We won't. Mm-hmm. Right? And so they put me in a position at such a young age to start pushing and driving. Most people don't start the journey that I was on at 17 or 16 until they're in their mid-20s or 30 years old, when mom and dad finally get sick and tired of them living in their basement and not trying.
Wow. Amen, brother. I love it. Seriously, that's a challenge that we're facing. And I lump it under the great umbrella of a leadership challenge, because I see leadership not just in business. We are leaders of our lives, first of all. Each one of us must lead our life and understand what that means. And yes, we're going to make mistakes. And yes, we're not always going to get the trophy, the gold ribbon, the McMansion, right? Those are effects of a deeper cause, which when push comes to shove, it's what you went through, the hard knocks, the figuring things out as you go along. And you mentioned something about the when you were talking about the yellow pages, and you said this was you were coming of age right at about the same time that the second wave of the internet was coming up, when social media really began, right? The mid 2000s. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us who are old enough to remember that time really look back and say that was the line in the sand between life before and now life as it is today. Yeah. The fact is, we can find a tutorial video on everything. You name it, it's
or a
out
podcast,
there.
Or a TikTok, or an Instagram reel. You can learn anything in a matter of a Google search in minutes. It's insane. It really is.
It is insane. So what do you see? How do I phrase this question? Is that, I guess ultimately I'm saying, is that a good thing, Zack? And if it is, I mean, I can't learn how to build a house by watching one YouTube video. I mean, that's insane, right? Like, I'd have to watch numerous YouTube videos. I have to invest a ton of time. Then I'd have to go out and actually practice that. So what is your take on the instant availability of information today, and what's your advice to people who are wanting to learn something new? Where do you even begin? Is it with the Google search? I mean, do you end up going down a bunch of rabbit holes just to find that one thing? I mean, tell us. I mean, you're in a really, I think, cool position, because you did come of age alongside of all these tools that we now have to learn.
Well, I think it's actually the greatest thing in the existence of your potential as a human being. Beyond it giving you opportunities to know and understand how things work, it broke down physical barriers. It broke down economic barriers between states, between countries. It completely got rid of borders. I have people that work for me in the Philippines, India. I have Brazilians working for me. I'm sponsoring, them, and we're working. Like, I have a business right now with 12 employees, and I think only 2 of us are from here in the United States. Mm. The opportunity to have VAs or virtual assistants and open up the borders economically has completely drastically changed the world. So I think it's a wonderful thing for the progress of countries that are not as developed. I think it's amazing for people that were not born with the same opportunities and economic opportunities that they were born with before, because now they can learn. They can learn for nearly free. Where before, colleges had a monopoly on information, which is not good economically for the growth of a community. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, more opportunity for other people equals less for me. And that's not true. That's a scarcity mindset. Because if let's say a billionaire comes in and builds a ski resort, well, that ski resort, all the money he paid for that ski resort, it doesn't just disappear. He still has probably more value than he paid in that ski resort. He could turn around and sell it. Right. And then on top of that, the land around it's now worth more. And all the companies that were there and all the homeowners that were there, now their property's worth more. Right. And on top of that, then it'll bring in more money and more businesses, and it'll grow economically. All of our success is intertwined. The more money that we make in our communities, the more wealth there is to go around. Right. So the way things work economically is if there's more opportunities and there's more opportunities for people to grow and to learn, it's just going to to explode, what we have and how we can live. So I think it's ultimately an amazing thing. But when, part of your question was, can we grow as people? Can we grow, and what's the step to like building a house? Can you get lost in YouTube? Is there too much information to keep us from taking action? That is one of the downsides. Mm-hmm. People go, oh, just go to YouTube University. Or they say, oh, I'm overwhelmed with information. I don't even know where to start. So I agree with you there. And my suggestion is this: if there's something that you have that you would like to accomplish, set a very specific goal, right? Because it's very easy to go, oh, that sounds cool. And then you start working towards it. And then you discover something in your journey and go, oh, that sounds cool. And you start hopping from one thing and you never complete any one goal or one task. And I think that the discipline of getting from point A to point B, the destination you wanted to get to, having that discipline to go all the way is going to be very significant to someone's success and being able to put on the blinders and just make it happen. That's when we start to dive deep and be resourceful and find ways to accomplish our goals. So the first thing is having that very distinct and set goal. And then from there, it's fine to go to YouTube and the podcast and try and come up with an outline the best you can. These are the steps 1 through 10 to get to my destination. And then you focus on learning step 1, studying step 1, and doing the action steps at the same time. For example, if you're trying to build a window cleaning business, well, what do you need to get started? Well, what does it take to get started? 1 through 10. Well, first I need some money. So, okay, well, step 1 is to get my first client. Well, let's figure out how to get my first client. What's the best way to get a client? Then you search YouTube, getting my first window cleaning client, getting my first service-based business client, right? And then learn a strategy like door-to-door sales. I have videos on doing that. I booked $1,000 of window cleaning $1,000 of window cleaning in 1 hour. I went out and did a door-to-door sales demonstration of what it took. And, I could wash $1,000 of window cleaning with one employee in 1 day. I showed people how you can make $1,000 a day washing windows, right? Like there's so much out there, even stuff that I put out there. And it's the same thing if you want to do real estate investing. Well, if you don't have any money, how do you get investing into real estate? Google that. Like, I promise you 1,000 things will pop up and start giving you some clarity on how to become whatever you want to become.
Yeah.
So I think it's an amazing opportunity. There's never been an opportunity in the existence of man like there is today, because the first thing to become successful is a comprehension of the opportunities in front of us. Mm-hmm. And it's everywhere.
It is.
It's so everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, Napoleon Hill talks about that in Think and Grow Rich. He talks about the sly disguises of opportunity. They're all around us, and they often don't look like we think they do. So we miss them.
It looked like a lot of work.
And they do look like a lot of work. And, going back to your point about we want to avoid pain at all costs, right? Yep. But it's the thing about growth is growth involves some pain. If you remember being an adolescent, when you literally had growing pains because your bones were expanding, your body was expanding. And it's a good thing that we at that age, we don't have the same level of awareness that we do when we're adults, because it's easy to just get lost in, as adolescents, get lost in a whole lot of other things. And those changes are just going to happen as time moves on.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Okay, well, let's transition. You actually did a nice setup to what you're doing now, Zack, with you have a podcast, Driving for Dollars Mastery. Your focus is teaching people how to invest in this timeless category known as real estate. And you're not the only one out there doing it, but you've got a unique approach. And you also recently did a little challenge, a 40-day challenge that you wanted to document to show people, hey, this is I'm taking you into the step-by-step here, folks. So start with, give us a broad sense of what it is you're doing now. And then tell us more about that challenge, because that's really interesting.
Yeah. So my core business right now is what I call real estate wholesaling. Basically, the process is where I find someone that has a house and they don't want to deal with it, right? There's no love for the house. It's a problem. So these are people that are like retired landlords. They have a bunch of rentals. They have one that's a problem. Tenants haven't been paying. They just don't want to deal with it. It's run down. They're done, right? Or people that inherited a property and they don't want to deal with it. It's in bad condition. They can't just turn around and list it. They just don't want to deal with it. They want a cash offer and walk away. Or someone just doesn't want to work with a real estate agent. They just want to sell it cash, right? So people that want speed and convenience over price. This exists in everything. Everything this exists. It's not just houses. It's like people sell stuff to pawn shops all the time. People put stuff for free up on Craigslist all the time. They don't want to deal with it, even though they could make money. I have a guy in my office that picks up free stuff off Craigslist and turns around and sells it on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and makes $5 to $10 grand a month doing this part-time.
Wow.
Right. So this stuff exists everywhere. We're just doing it with houses. Right. So we're essentially a pawn shop for houses. So what we do is we find people that want to sell. And the way we do that is what I call driving for dollars. That's why everything I have is branded driving for dollars. We're driving around, we're finding houses in our local neighborhoods that need some love, right? The ones that's like, man, I don't even know if someone lives there, or the grass is super tall, or there's peeling paint, or there's broken down vehicles. Like, we're looking for those houses that if they sold, they would probably need to sell to an investor. And we're not trying to convince them to sell. We say, hey, do you want to sell your house? They say, no, we move on. Right. And so we're just trying to put out a bunch of information, but we go and add these properties. We use a technology. We use an app to do this. There's some things that make this very efficient and work really well. I won't go too deep, but we find these ugly houses and then we reach out if they want to sell. We're doing texting, cold calling, and postcards. And then once we find someone, we get the house under contract. So many of you right now are mental block. Oh, I don't have the money to buy a house. I can't do this. No, that's not how it works. You don't need to buy the house. You don't need to have the debt to buy the house. You don't need anything to buy the house. You don't buy the house. But what you do is you get the property under contract, and that purchase contract has a paragraph that says I can sell it to someone else. I can sell that contract to someone else and they can close on it, or I can assign the contract. Right. So then I go, let's say, Bobby wants to sell me his house. I sign a contract with Bobby, and then Johnny, right, the guy that flips houses in my neighborhood, I go, hey, Johnny, do you want this property? How much would you pay roughly for this property? He's like, I'd pay 120. It's like, great. I have it under contract for 100. So I'm going to sell you my contract for $20,000. And then you go to the title company, put 120, I get 20, the seller gets the 100, and you get the house. So you're basically finding opportunities and passing them on. It's called real estate wholesaling. So that's my main core business, but I'm also helping other people get started in this. That's a story in itself of how I got there. I never had any intentions of doing that. But I've found a lot of love and passion for it. That's why I have the podcast and YouTube channel, is helping people get started in this. But, that's what I'm doing. You also mentioned the 40-day challenge. And that was basically just showing people that you don't have to have really any resources. You don't really have to know much at all to do this. I flew across the country to somewhere where I'd never been with only $1,000. And the goal was to make the average American income in just 40 days, which is a little over 40,000. And, and all I got was $1,000 to do this strategy. And, we could talk more about it, but I blew that goal out of the water. So
yeah, you did. Tell listeners what came of that experiment.
Well, I'll tell you why I did it in the first place. So
that's good too. We want to know why.
Well, part of it was, so I started, I walked away from window cleaning and started doing this real estate wholesaling thing. And I started having a ton of success. I'd hired a mentor and it changed my life. Like, I was making okay washing windows, but I was kind of burnt out. I was really burnt out. I brought on a business partner. We had different visions for the business. I was really sick of it. And so, when I got into this real estate thing, I was wanting to buy rentals and flip houses and stuff. And I started making more money than I ever imagined was even possible. And it blew my mind. And I did like $500,000 in like 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was blown away, and I was doing a self-help journal, and it said, whatever you want to receive, you have to give away, essentially. And so it's like, if you want love, you give love. If you want value, you give value. You want money, you give money. So I was like, okay, well, I had set a goal for the next year, generating $1 million, and it's more money than I ever even imagined. And according to this journal, I had to give it away. So I went to my wife, most supportive lady ever. And I said, hey, honey, I got a great idea. We're going to give away $1 million. And she's like, you're an idiot.
What was this? What's this self-help journal? Can you name it?
Yes, it's called Living Your Best Year Ever by Darren Hardy. It's basically a journal, but the first 100 pages, you create 3 big goals, and it talks about who you have to become and what you have to do to accomplish it.
Okay.
The way the way I interpreted it is I had to give away $1 million to be worthy of that $1 million. And it sounded great, kind of went in line with my core values of helping and giving back. But I was like, I didn't really love the idea of just giving money to someone because I don't think it helps someone. It just makes it so they're comfortable, right? And remember what I believe about being uncomfortable. It drives us to be better.
Yes.
So I was like, well, how can I still give away $1 million without hurting someone's progress in life, right? So now I had this inner problem that I'm trying to solve. And my wife actually came up with the idea. She's like, well, honey, in the last 18 months, you came up with $500,000 doing this driving for dollars thing. Why don't you just find 10 people and teach them what you just did? And then now you're not just giving it away. They're having to earn it, but you're giving them the step-by-step. I'm like, you're genius. Like, that's exactly what we're going to do. And my wife is very smart, the most supportive person in the world. I love her to death. We've been married 10 years now, actually 11. But anyways, so we started doing this, right? I went to my original mentor that taught me how to do real estate wholesaling. His name's Tom Kroll. And I said, Tom, teach me how to be a coach. I want to teach these 10 people. And he said, okay, great. So you're going to charge them all this amount of money. You're going to give it all to me and I'll teach you how to coach.
Yeah.
Because he said, number one rule, you don't teach for free, because if you teach for free, they don't take it serious, right? It needs to be a gut check for them. And you need, if you're going to really put $1 million in their pockets, they need to take action. And if they're going to take action, you got to know it, right? Before you start, you're just going to waste your time. So, and he's like, and then plus I need to make sure you're serious. So you're going to pay me. So I took all the money that I got for my first 10 students, gave it all to Tom for me to be a better coach, to really focus on them. So it was all about putting $1 million in other people's pockets, not making money off my students. I had zero intentions of doing so. And blew my mind, honestly. My very first student I ever started coaching, his name's Michael McLeish. And in I think it was about 1.5 years or so, he texted me. He said, I alone have now made over $1 million from what you've taught me.
Oh, there's proof. There's proof right there.
It blew my mind. And and the crazy thing is I did 1.2 million that year in my real estate wholesaling business. The more I taught, the more I realized how dumb I was. The more I taught, I started getting questions like, hey, Zach, how do you do this? I'm like, oh man, am I even doing that? And then I'm finding tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of mistakes in my own business. So it like really propelled me forward. It worked. If you want love, you give love. If you want value, you give value. And like, I'm getting chills, right? Like
I am too.
It changed my life, right? I really understood this principle at a very deep level. And beyond that, I made a lot of money, but then I became addicted to it. I became addicted to helping others. So now I'm like, how do I automate this business? How do I bring in a team of people to run my real estate investing business so I can be a coach and so I can do podcasts and YouTube and just help people? And then I did, but then like a year later, I'm like 100% immersed into coaching and helping people. And I started discovering that there's so many skeptics like me in the beginning. That, it's too good to be true. You can't make money doing this. Why would anyone sell their house at 50 cents on the dollar? You're probably dishonest, blah, 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 blah. All these questions and concerns. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how do I debunk all that in a wholesome and loving way? Right. Like, because a lot of these people have amazing hearts and that's why they don't start. They're worried that it's dishonest, and it's like, those are the kinds of people I want doing this business. Yes. So I'm like, I'm having this come to Jesus, if you will, moment. And I'm up super late. I can't sleep. It's like 2 a.m. and I'm trying to solve this problem with an idea. And I came up with this challenge. I'm like, well, what made me believe that it was possible? What had happened was when I was still washing windows and I had discovered this, I was very skeptical, but I was washing windows for a wealthy real estate developer and got talking to him. I was super intrigued because I was interested in real estate. And I said, man, if I could just get 2 rentals by the end of the year, it would be a huge blessing to me and my family. So, that's convenient. I got these 2 properties I don't want to deal with. I haven't collected rents in 4 months. And he just seller financed to me for like $2,000 down. I ended up selling them the next year for over $100,000 profit. That was the aha. Okay, let me go get a coach. Moment. Yeah, it's like, I'm going to go get a coach. Like, that's more money than I make in, 1.5 years washing windows. Like, I was like, that was just one conversation. I'm like, what if I could have that kind of conversation every day? And so or have other people even having those conversations for me every day. And so that's when I went all in. And so it's like, well, what made me believe and not become a skeptic is seeing it happen, is meeting this guy named Stan. Like, how can I go and show the world that interaction with Stan? It's like, well, I got to go create another one and document it this time. So I had the goal of making the average American income in 40 days and going somewhere I'd never been, because I couldn't have my team, my employees, my reputation here in Utah. I had to go somewhere where no one knew who I was. So I did. And that was the whole point of that 40-day challenge, was to give that belief and hope and understanding of what it takes to get started in real estate and completely change your life.
Wow.
So that's why I did it. It was for others.
Oh my gosh. I'm a little bit speechless here, because one, I'm so moved by how you are so other-centered, centric. It's about helping others and giving. And
I haven't always been this way.
No, none of us are. I mean, I think it's a very unique individual who their entire life is about giving. I think it comes with experience. It comes from sometimes getting punched down and realizing that, you really have two choices. You can choose to be bitter and grumpy and mean, and some people choose that. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to just show up with love, because it makes, again, go back to the whole pain thing. When you show up with love, you don't feel pain. When you show up with anger and bitterness and resentment and those negative emotions, because you feel like you got the short end of the stick, or life isn't fair. I always think of the movie or the story, The Lion King, that opening scene with Scar when he says, life's not fair. He's the younger brother of the king. And instead of being gracious and grateful, he's mean and greedy. And we know what happens to Pride Rock when he takes over. It's an age-old duality. You can't have pleasure without pain, but you can't have pain without pleasure. You don't know what those mean. And your story, Zack, is it's inspirational. It's encouraging. I like that you brought up the fact that people are going to be skeptical, especially when it comes to a popular category like real estate, feeling like they might get ripped off, or this is too good to be true. And you've worked hard to mitigate those objections and say, listen, I'm showing you what to do. There's nothing hidden behind some magical curtain here. I'm giving you the steps.
I've had so many people text me or DM me on social media, and they're like, send me a picture of a $20,000 check. And they're like, Zack, thank you so much. I watched your 40-day challenge on YouTube and I got my first deal. And dude, it gives me chills. It makes me know that I'm doing something bigger than myself, Yes. And yes, I coach. And yes, some people come to me like, Zack, I want your cell phone. I want you helping me with my deals. Like, I want you to be my coach. And so they pay me to be their coach. And I love that. I do a lot of that. But knowing that I have, TikToks and podcasts and YouTube channels that has everything that someone needs to be successful, like, to me, it's like, that's fulfilling. Like, that's everything, because I have my cake and I eat it too. I have financial success. I have a healthy family. I have, just amazing people around me. I have a team of employees that have the same mission and desire to help others around them. Like, I've built this amazing culture, and all these wonderful people are being blessed, and there's so much love. My mentor said, Zack, no one's coming to your funeral. He said, people will only care what you've done is when you're changing their lives. It's about them. It's not about you. And I've adopted that, and it's changed everything for me. I have so much fulfillment. Like I said, I wasn't always that way. When I had my window cleaning business and all those employees, we had high turnover. Culture sucked. I hated my employees. They hated me. It was horrible. I hated it. And I was just like, how can I pay them less and get more out of them? How do I get them to do more with less? And that was my approach. And it was bad. It made me hate being an entrepreneur for a time. And now it's like, how do I set up this business to make other people succeed? And how do I make sure my businesses are more importantly set up to serve and bless the families and the lives that work in it?
Yes.
And and I have that now. And it's super humbling, and I'm so grateful for it, But I think that what's most important is, I'm just an example of the potential that everyone has. I was just a window cleaner, I was just a broke kid, with a simple story that just was working really hard trying to find his way. And, if I could find my way, others can too.
Mm-hmm. And you pinpointed a very important variable in the success equation, and that is you had a vision for what you wanted. And even though you had air quote success with your window cleaning business, the fact that you didn't like it, it wasn't making you happy, you didn't enjoy the people you were with, they didn't enjoy you, that isn't success, right? And I think sometimes it's most times it's out of misery that we find our greatest joy. And I can hear it in your voice. I think listeners are going to hear your enthusiasm, your true. There's no strings attached, right? This is just you showing up every day saying, I love what I do, and how can I help you? How can I help you fulfill your dreams in real estate? And so if there's one, I guess, kernel of wisdom that you could pass on to listeners who maybe have thought about getting into the real estate game or just finding out a little bit more, what would that be?
Well, I would definitely go watch the 40-day challenge. That sucked for me to put together, but it's like the best piece of content that exists out there on real estate.
Why did it suck? Because it was long.
Oh, so hard, dude. I would cold call from the time I got out of bed till I went to bed. I wasn't with my family for 30 days. I sent him back to Brazil to visit my wife's family where she's from. And I worked. And then I was running both my businesses and doing this challenge all on my own. And it was horrible. I mean, in the videos, you can just see I am exhausted. I'm exhausted from like day 3 on. I just look like death. And it wasn't easy, but that's what I wanted. You can see me make mistakes because I'm overtired. I sent an email with a deal at $100,000 below I meant to like 5,000 people. My phone's blowing up. I'm ticked off because now I got to change the price. Like, you can just see me making mistake after mistake and frustrated. And even though I made mistakes, I have success. So it's, it was crappy for me to put together because it was a lot of hard work that I didn't have to do. I really didn't need the money. I didn't care. It wasn't about that. It was about, helping others. So like that one's probably where I'd start if you have any interest, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to wholesale. I want to buy rentals. It's like, well, to be a successful, buy and hold investor, you got to start with deeply discounted houses. Because if you start with a deeply discounted house, it doesn't matter what you do with it. You kind of got to be a dummy not to get wealthy. Right. So the first place to start in real estate investing is learning how to get properties at a big discount. Right. If you're going to try and, for example, sell vehicles or rent out vehicles, you can't buy vehicles at full retail price to really be successful. You'd have to get them at 50 cents on the dollar. If you're trying to run a pawn shop, you can't pay full price to be successful with the pawn shop. Right. And so with real estate investing, the number one key, the number one secret, it doesn't matter if you're doing multifamily, if you're doing commercial, if you're doing residential, you have to start with a deeply discounted property. There's that cliche saying, buy low, sell high. Right. And so that's the first step. And that's what I show you how to do in that 40-day challenge. So there's it's DFD, stands for Driving for Dollars, challenge.com. That is just like a quick link. You can go in there and put in your email and I'll send you access to that 40-day challenge, or you can catch it for free on my YouTube channel. Just search my name in YouTube, Zack Booth, ZackBoothe. Go to my playlist on my YouTube channel and you'll see the 40-day challenge. So you can either go to those two places. The email's nice because I send you a bunch of other free information and education, and you can actually do the 40-day challenge along with me. So
nice.
Definitely check it out.
Yeah. So team, links to what Zack is sharing will be on his show notes page as well at pyppodcast.com. And it clearly, if you're looking to learn from someone who has your best interests in mind, Zack is at the top of the list. Okay. There's no question in my mind that, what you're doing, Zack, is really, it is servant leadership. You are showing up to serve and give back. And I think that's the arc that really is the arc of our experiences in leadership, is we you don't just come out of the gate at the top. You have to scramble and make mistakes and learn as you go. And I mean, you haven't come out and said this, but I think in the subtext here is you can't promise that just because somebody does what you did, they're going to have the exact same success as you. But what you are showing through the DMs that you get, through the testimonials and the photos of the checks, is that people are learning. And each of us has to learn and take action for ourselves. I mean, you know, team, I hope you know, and I think you do, because we're all in this, is you can watch anything and learn anything. But unless you take action on what you've learned, it's just information. It's not going to turn into a tangible thing like a check for 20 grand or 100 grand if you're doing real estate investing. Or if you want to write a book, you can watch a gazillion videos and read blog posts all day long about step-by-steps. This is what you do. Or, you know, to become a fashion model or whatever, you know, fill in the blank, become a carpenter, until you go do what that person who's giving you, the way Zack is, here's the blueprint, people. You know, here it is. There's no mystery. And I honestly think that that's one of the biggest stopping points for the majority of folks who never get off that space that they find themselves, because they're afraid. They're afraid of taking action because they don't want to look foolish. They think they're going to lose money. They want to avoid the pain. And so they do nothing, but then they're in their own form of pain anyway. So it's like, come on, get out there and try.
People fail by default by not trying.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's going to be pain either way, at least be in pain of pursuit of what you want, you know?
I agree. I'd rather get the bruises and the cuts from going after something that I want, you know, stepping out into that space, than sitting idle on the sidelines and having that pain of stagnation just completely swallow me. Oh God, that's brutal. So, well, Zack, this has been such a great conversation, and you've shared where people can learn more about your 40-day challenge. You have a podcast. Certainly, I'll put a link to that on your show notes page. You mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. You read when you were 14, and you've invested in coaching. Is there a book or two that have also, as you've gotten older and gained more experience running businesses and being a leader, that you could recommend to Team PYP to add to their library?
100%. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So one of my favorite books when it comes to building and managing and scaling a business and dealing with people. Incredible, incredible book.
And that's by?
Max.
Is it John Maxwell?
John Maxwell, yeah. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, incredible author. I've read a few of his books, but that one's definitely one of my favorites.
All right. Well, I'll share that with listeners as well on your show notes page. And again, thank you today for inspiring me, for just being who you are, Zack. I feel very, very fortunate that I get to do this and have conversations like we had today with people who you're passionate, you care, you lead with love, you're about service and helping other people find the success that they're looking for. And real estate you mentioned it, it's a timeless investment. There's always going to be something out there that someone doesn't want. But you as an investor can find the gold inside perhaps the iron ore.
I say it this way: find a deal of a lifetime every week and you'll be wealthy.
Wow. I love it. It. Well, I wish you all the best, and enjoy those mountains of Utah and all the other places you go with your family, Zack. And again, thank you so much for sharing your leadership journey here at the Play Your Position podcast.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.